Well, welcome everyone. I'd say good morning because it's morning here, but I know it's nighttime elsewhere. We have a lot of folks from all over the world attending, so we're just excited to be able to present to you today just a little bit about how you can manage assets using Axiom. I'm sure many of you struggle with just being able to monitor assets, maybe across remote sites or even within an individual plan. It can be tough. How do we know if, there's a particular asset ready to break down, or is it not running optimally? Is it wasting us money? There's so many things that, you need to consider across a large array of assets. And so we have tools within Axiom that help with that. So go ahead and get started here. Let me go ahead and just start with a basic overview of the dashboard here. So this is, if you're not familiar with Axiom, Axiom is browser based. So I have a dashboard that's already built within my browser. I'm just using Chrome. You also can utilize Axiom via a desktop. It's a simple click once thin client icon on your desktop. You'll be able to launch Axiom as well from. But what I want to do is, we have I know a lot of folks I talked to that were attending that, really are interested in, how do we use some of the controls within Axiom to manage our assets. So what I want to do is I'm going to go to the main menu here in my Axiom, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new application. So the first thing I need to account for when I'm going to create a new application is the size of the screen the end users will actually be using this application from, because it could be something where we just have some operators that want to have a couple gauges just to see a few really important KPIs on their assets. So they might be using that from even a mobile device, maybe an iPhone. So I would want to make sure I just have my screen resolution set to the right pixel height and width for that particular device. Now I'm just going to go ahead and create my dashboard here to fit the size of the screen that I'm using right now. So once I've determined my screen area, in our designer, I have all these different controls that I can use to go ahead and start dragging and dropping in to create my dashboard. Now, one tool in particular that's really powerful is what we call our asset template control. So I'm just going to drag and drop that in. Now, the very first thing it's going to do is it recognizes that this particular control has to be linked to some type of a virtual view. So if you're not familiar with our terminology, when we say virtual view, that's just a kind of a filter that we've created over top of the raw data within the historian that allows us to see maybe tag names in an easier to read manner, as well as takes the different tags and associates those with a particular asset. So in today's example, I'm going to use my virtual view called substation. We're going to be just taking a look at different power substations across the electric power system. And once I've determined that, then I need to pick, okay, what type of actual assets do we want to monitor at that site? So in this case, I want to monitor my power transformers. So I'm going to go ahead and apply my power transformer asset to this control. And what it'll do is it automatically found 13 different transformers that I have in my system right now that I'm logging data to. So the pretty cool thing about this is each one of those power transformers is represented by one of these boxes. We call these just asset cards, because what I can do is I can create a visual aid here with one card, and it propagates to all the other assets in this particular virtual view. So let's say I just wanted to, maybe monitor some, maybe some temperatures and things for a power transformer. I can now start using some other controls, like say the donut gauge, and I can just drag that gauge right into that first asset card. And it's going to ask me, okay, we know that a power transformer always has these 5 tags associated with it. Which of the tags do you want to use to monitor across all 13 transformers? I'm going to go with, maybe the winding temperature for this particular transformer. And what it'll do then is it will propagate that temperature, for all the different power transformers. In this case, I have 13. So there's 13 different gauges registering 13 different temperatures. So it's really easy and quick to create your actual template because you're only doing it one time for many. So I can maybe make a couple quick adjustments to my donut gauge control. So let me go ahead into the properties for that control. So the first thing I may want to do is just adjust the maximum scale to 150 because I know that most of these are operating above 100. So I want to make sure I have the right scale range. And maybe I would like to have some type of a visible limit range on the gauge. So for example, I know that if the temperature, I don't know, maybe if it gets above 105, we'll say greater than or equal to 105, then I want to have a high limit color of red. And then maybe I want to have another limit that says, okay, if the temperature drops below 105, then that's going to be normal. So I'm going to have just a neutral color there. And then finally, I can have, as you can see, many limits, but I want to have a low limit now that says, okay, if it gets less than or equal to a temperature of, let's say, 98, then I want to have a blue color for a low threshold. Now what I can do is I can make these limit ranges invisible. Therefore, it'll just update the color of the gauge to the actual limit that it's at right now. So this is much easier to see what might be my problem assets right now based on the color of the gauge. So maybe I would like to add a couple more controls into this first asset card. So I'm going to just come back up here, and maybe I just want to have sort of like what we would call a spark chart, just a kind of a mini live trend of the data. And again, it's going to ask me what tag I want to monitor. Maybe in this case, I want to monitor the input kilovolts. And I can adjust the properties for the spark chart as well. Maybe I'd like to, adjust the height, or even easier, I can just grab an edge and just make it any size I'd like to. I'm going to kind of place that right here for now. And maybe I'd like to come up here and add, I don't know, say a label, because I'd like to know, or maybe I know, but maybe the operator will need to know what is that gauge representing or that spark line representing. So we can drag and drop a label, maybe right here. And in the properties for the label, just adjust some font size, center that. And then I'm going to just call this input kilovolts. So now I know that's the input kilovolts. Maybe I'd also like to have the actual value showing beneath the trend. I can do that. I could just say, okay, let's put a value box here. And same thing, that's going to be for the input kilovolts. So I can see there's the live value for the kilovolts. As well with the spark chart, I can adjust things such as the time duration. And maybe I want to look at the last, I don't know, let's say 8 hours. So I can just come in here and say, hey, I want to see the last 8 hours of data for the, maybe for the previous shift. And then maybe I want the color to be a little lighter here, for example. So there I've created, my input kilovolts. Maybe adjust that, center that a little better. So I'm making one change, and you can see how all the asset cards are updating here for me. Now, the cool thing with this template is I can also put a filter in place, because I may only be looking at 13 assets, and you can already see how I have to scroll through a lot just to get to maybe one particular asset. But my concern maybe as an operator is I want to see any of these transformers that have too high of a temperature. So I could just put in the filter at the top here in the filter bar, I could just put in the name of the tag. So my temperature, if it's greater than, let's say 101, then I would like to, only see those assets that are above 101 degrees. So in this case, it went from 13 to 7 because, again, my filter is set for just showing all those assets above 101 degrees. And I could even add a sort in here. I could say sort by that tag in descending order. So that way it just puts the highest temperatures at the top. So I don't have to scroll down through my list. Maybe I'm just curious, for just the temperatures that are too high, I can see that here real easily. So if I actually have this in live mode, if this was my finished product, then I can just keep an eye on, the ones that are just too high of a threshold. So some other controls that you can utilize to manage your assets. Not only are we talking the asset template, but there's some other controls as well. We have our grid control. So with the grid control, I'm going to drop that in here. I'm going to go into my properties. I can associate a grid control with an asset. So I'll just use the same substation and transformer model here for the moment. So if you're familiar with our grid control, this is just a great reporting tool where you can, make it more or less a spreadsheet of information. So the nice thing here is once I've assigned this grid control to my substation model, it automatically gave me 13 rows, one for each transformer at every site. So I can add some other property adjustments. Maybe I'd like to change the number of columns, add column headers, etc. But what I really want to do for the moment here is just simply put in a couple controls, one in each column here. First of all, I want to see the value. So I'm going to drop a value in on the first row here. And again, I'm going to monitor maybe the temperature there. So I can see how the temperatures came in right away for each of the transformers. And maybe I'd like to have some other graphic here. Again, maybe a spark chart. I can put that in, and that way I can at least see a trend of that same data here as well. So there we have our spark chart. So the same concept as well with the grid control. I can move this around anywhere I'd like to on my screen, but I can also put in filtering as well here. The same idea as what I did here with the asset template. So grid control is another great tool you can use to manage assets. So I'm going to just kind of move this up here out of the way a little bit. Put that up here, and maybe I'll make that a little wider. Just kind of neaten this up here for a second. So what I want to do next is add another control in my available space here. Now keep in mind, you can design a lot of different cool things within these templates. I've seen people do entire HMI-like builds because we have, symbol graphics library built in and other controls. But just to kind of stick with the theme of controls that help us manage our assets, another really nice tool for that is also our panel. So if I put in a panel, so a panel control for us is basically subdividing the screen into like a smaller screen. So anything that I do inside this panel is not being affected by anything else within my screen here. So just for an example, if I go into the properties of the panel, again, I can assign an asset instance to this panel. So again, I'll just go in here and focus on transformers. And then the thing with the instance then is the panel, it can focus on one asset to start with. So I can just say, hey, I want to just focus on the very first asset here at the Elm district at station number 1. And so anything that I do within designing this panel will always refer to that first asset instance I've selected. So I'm just going to put a couple other controls in here. So for example, maybe I would like to actually put in a symbol graphic here. So I'm going to drop in a symbol graphic, and then I can pick from our whole database of categories. So I'm dealing with power in this case. So let's go ahead. There's a transformer. I'm going to go ahead and drop that in here. Maybe size that a little bigger. Move that here on my panel. And then what I can do with the symbol graphic, I can come into the properties of that graphic, and I'm going to link it to a source tag. So this is where I can find any tag within my historian. If you're not familiar with our historian, it can be subdivided into data sets. In this case, I just want to focus on my substation view, though, because these are all my different virtual views. So if I would like to find tags, now I just searched previously for WTI, but here would be all the tags associated with that substation view. So again, if I just want to look for my winding temperature tags, great. Here's all my 13 different temperatures. So I want to start with that first one. I'm going to go ahead and add that. So then along with that power transformer, now that I've associated the tag with that, maybe as well, I just want to say, hey, anything above 105, at least in this case, I want it to change to a red color, and that way that'll change if it's in an alarm state. So some other things that I can put in here in a panel, let's say I'd like to also look at a circular gauge. I'm going to drag and drop in a circular gauge. So with the circular gauge, it's the same idea. Again, I'm going to focus on the very first asset, and in this case, I want to see the circular gauge associated to the temperature. So I'm going to put that here as well. And I don't know, maybe I'd like to put a value box in the circular gauge too, just so I can see more of a digital reading. So I'll make the circular gauge bigger, and we'll go ahead and drop in a value box as well here. And again, I'm going to stick with that first asset. And now I can kind of see a digital display of the temperature here. Oops. If I go back here to the, and maybe I'd like to put another option in here. I can keep adding more controls, but what I want to do here now is if let's say this is all the more I'd like to see within my panel display. If I'm in live mode, now as an operator, I can change which asset I'm looking at. So I can actually go maybe to the second one here, and I can go ahead and apply that. In this case, I can see the temperature is pretty high. Looks like I need to adjust the scale here. So what I'm going to do is put this back in edit mode, and we're going to adjust the properties for that gauge. I'm going to make the scale, I'm going to make that scale 150. Oops, 150. And I can even put in the interval. You can see how it goes in multiples of 25. If I wanted to make that, 10, now you can see how my scale changes there with the intervals. You can see how this is in a red color because the temperature is above 105 in that case. So what I can do from here then as well is I can change how this actually displays within the panel. So if I don't want to have to be able to always just change and go to a separate list, I could actually do something called like a mode selection. So within this panel, I can change how I'm looking at this. Instead of modal, I can say inline. So what happens here then is I'm actually going to make the width a little better there for us. And now I'm going to come in and move all this over so you can see it better. Just, there we go. Move this over here. So if I put this back in live mode, now you can see I have a list of all my assets. So anytime I pick a different asset here, everything would update according to the asset I've selected within my panel. Okay, so those are three kind of key controls that we have within Axiom that allow you to make managing your assets a lot easier. So the other side of things here within my screen, if I say I ran out of room here and I really like to have another screen that would run a better report, I can add a second screen, for example. And within that second screen, again, I'm going to change the size of the screen. And what I want to do in this case is I think I like to go back to my grid control here, and I'm going to drop in my grid control, but I'm going to make it rather large because I want to have a better looking report, a larger reporting space. And so in this case, what I'm going to do is go back to my properties again, and I'm going to actually make the column 5 this time. And I'm going to put in just a quick header here. We're going to call this, and I'm just going to go off of just the tag name, just the temperature tag in this case. I'm going to call this WTI1, 2. So basically, I'm going to compare 5 different transformer assets here. So you can create column headers. Now what I can do is I can start adding rows in here. So for example, let's say I would like to compare temperatures. So I'm gonna use a donut gauge again. So I'm gonna drop a donut gauge in, and again it's gonna say, okay, which donut gauge or which tag do I want to associate with that donut gauge? I'll just pick the first one here again, and I'm gonna make this a little bigger here on this first row. Now what I can do with the gauge, instead of just putting in some high limits, etc., I can actually, what I'm more interested in is maybe I want to make a weekly report out of this. So what I'm really more concerned about is just seeing what the averages are maybe for the past week. So right now it's showing the live information, but what I'd like to do is, if you're familiar with Canary, we have over 40 different ways that you can apply different data aggregates. These are all from the OPC Foundation. So for example, if I would like to see what the average temperature was for the past week for my transformer assets, I can pick the actual, in this case, time average, and you can see the definitions. We're going to look at the time weighted average. So I'm going to apply that, and oh, I got a nice error there. So let me come back and redo that. Actually, I'm gonna make more of a spreadsheet. I'm gonna put in a value box here for the first column for that tag, and we'll go ahead then. And actually, what I need to do is when I do the average aggregate, I need to pick an interval period. So I actually want to put in 7 days because I want to do this for a week. And then what I'd like to do is I want to say that I want to start it now minus 7 days ago. So going back 7 days and then moving forward for the prior week, I want to see what that time average is. So we're going to go and put in our time average aggregate here then. And so now I can actually going to make that a little bigger here. So if I go into my properties, and I'm going to actually put in a larger font size here, and we'll go ahead and center that. So that was my average for the entire week for that asset. So I can actually just kind of copy that across here for the other 5, and then just make a real quick adjustment in the properties where I want to go ahead and look at the second tag on the second column, and then the third tag in the third column here. So I'm just updating the tags that they're associated with. And then finally, my 5th transformer, we'll go ahead and I want to use the Maple Station number 2. So I can see over the past week what my averages were for those 5 transformers. So, and I could build out, many more rows here. I could have put, a column for a label here as well. So I could see this is the weekly average, and I could add, another column. We could do a maximum aggregate. So essentially I can just take this row and I can copy that row. And now for the second row, then I can just make it so that I'm going to keep the same tags, but now I'm just going to change the aggregate from a time average to maybe, a maximum, for example. I want to see what the max temperature was. So last week it was that got pretty hot. So I'm just going to update that for the other 4 here. So I just want to see, it's pretty easy to go and build reports out. You just got to be aware you need to, maybe update tags, but you can copy rows and across so you don't have to duplicate your work as much. So let's just go ahead and finish that off here. We're going to do a maximum on that. And then finally, our maximum aggregate on the last one. So I can see last week that these 3 actually, I'm using some automated data here, but they all 3 were really hot. Now, maybe I also like to have another type of report. Let me go ahead. I'm going to create a third screen here that what I want to do is I want to put a bar graph report in for our assets. So I can go back to the controls, and we have this bar chart control. I'm going to drag and drop that in. So now it's going to ask me, okay, what tags for this virtual view here do I want to associate? Maybe I just want to compare the 3 transformers at the Elm district for these 3 stations. We'll go ahead and add those in. Now what I can do is I can first of all, I can make this bigger. Maybe I want to make it to the size of the screen that I just created here. Now I can make some property adjustments for the bar chart as well. So maybe I want to look over the past 8-hour period instead of 1 hour. It just defaults to 1 hour. And then maybe my aggregate interval, I want to look at this in 1 hour increments. So here's an 8-hour report. I can even put that in live mode. So I can see, starting at 4 a.m. for the past 8 hours, what was the average temperature, for each transformer over an 8-hour period, for example. Now I can go back and, maybe I would like to change the properties here so that for this bar chart, again, maybe I don't want to look at the average. Maybe I want to update it so that I can see what was the range over those different hour periods. So I can see, looks like at 6 a.m., the transformer here really had a large fluctuation. It had an almost 30-degree range in temperature in that hour. So that could be a problem. So the bar chart's just a great reporting tool as well. Now I can keep adding screens if I'd like to. Let's just say though that, I'm pretty satisfied with my application. I'm going to go ahead and go back, and I'm going to save this now because I'd like to make this available maybe to everybody in the organization. You can save your applications publicly or just for my individual, user account, or from an admin perspective. Since I'm signed in as an admin, I could save this as read only so people can still access it, but they can't make changes to it. I'll just make this, let's say public, and I'll just call this Axiom webinar report and save that. So once I've saved an application, the neat thing is those applications, then they can actually be used as automated reports. So let's say I wanted this report to be generated, weekly, for example. If this is going to give me a weekly display of data that I wanted to report on, I can come back to my main menu and I can go into the reports. And this is where we automate reports. So there's a scheduler option. So I can see existing reports that are on a schedule to be generated, but I'm going to go ahead and create a new report. So I can pick where that report is generated from. So it kind of remembers, hey, I just created this one that has it highlighted. So I can go ahead and pick this or any of the other applications I've saved. But I'm going to pick that first application, and I can choose a schedule. How often do I want to have this report generated? So if this is a weekly report, great, or I could generate a report monthly. There's some advanced options. Even you can create a report that runs after an event completes. So if I had in our event tracking module an event that said, hey, anytime there's a transformer that's above this temperature for this period of time, generate an event, send me an email or text message. At the same token, I could also say, hey, when that event completes, generate this report and email it to me. So there's a lot of functionality here with our report generator. But what I'm going to do is just say, hey, you know what? Every Monday, because I'm saying weekly, so every Monday at, I don't know, maybe I want to have the report in my inbox, by the time my shift starts. So 5 a.m. on Monday, I want this report to be emailed to, this person, or I could put a comma and have another email address or a group email, and I want to include that as an attachment. So it'll take a snapshot, a screenshot of that report at 5 a.m. on Monday, and it'll send me that email. So I'll go ahead here and add that in. Now that's all ready to go. So we're getting pretty short on time. If anybody has any questions, we do have the Q&A available. You could drop a question in if you'd like to ask one. Now you can always follow up with me individually. If you have anything specifically you'd like to see, we could do maybe more of a one-on-one type of a demo. But I'll just leave this Q&A option open here and just see if anybody has any questions. Feel free to ask away if you'd like. And while I'm waiting for a question, I do want to point out for everybody that's joining here, we have our new Canary Community. So with the Canary Community, you can come in and you can go first to maybe our forum. So in the forum, we have a Q&A section, so you can actually come into the forum and ask a question. So we have a lot of questions in here already, and you can go in and see the answers and anybody from the community that's made a comment. So feel free to take advantage of the Canary Community. And within the community as well, you'll be able to see, if I go back to the home page of the community, we have different categories: feedback, forum, even our knowledge base, learning Canary. So if you would like to learn more about Canary in a training format, we have a Canary Training Academy that you can come in and see different courses, and each course has different training videos, and you can go in and take those courses and do take a quiz at the end to be certified in that subject. But I want to thank you all for taking time out of your Friday to join our webinar, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the future on another one. Have a great day, everybody.